everyone. Welcome to Culture here on I-24 News. I'm Oded Grober. Thank you for joining me. Today on our show, a conversation with Amos Gitai about his latest film, Rabin, The Last Day. And we'll take a look at past press photos that captured the world's attention. Amos Gitai is an Israeli filmmaker whose illustrious filmography includes such films as Kadosh, Kippur, and Free Zone. His latest film, Rabin, The Last Day, which deals with the murder of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and its aftermath, has just premiered at the Venice Film Festival. Before he took off to screen the film at the festival, we had Gitai here in the studio to talk a little bit about it. Here's our conversation. So, Amos, first of all, thank you so much for coming in and speaking to me today.
Pleasure.
And I'd like to begin by asking, why make a film about Rabin now?
I say that this film I make more, or principally as an Israeli citizen, not just as a film director. Because I think that we need sometimes, cinema is a very strong medium to bring back a memory. And we have to remember that 20 years ago, Rabin and Peres together tried to mobilize this region and to move into some peace agreements. And I think that in the current state of the Middle East, we need to think back of this.
We need to be reminded of it. You feel that the memory has faded away or has changed over the years?
I wouldn't say it's faded away. You know, you have been watching, like me, the last weeks, almost here in Israel, on every television or radio, they speak again about Rabin, you know. So I think that Rabin was a great general, made his own strategy to hit back 20 years later. But that's as a citizen, you know. So we worked, we did a major research to write the script and to cast. It's a very big film, 70 actors, hundreds of extras.
You know, it's not a documentary film, we should say that, but it does use a lot of archival footage, which gives it a very authentic kind of feeling. Is it your personal views, or are you trying to give it a more authentic feel?
You know, it's like JFK. In JFK, you don't have Kennedy. Kennedy is represented in archive, and I thought that Oliver Stone made a good decision because these great figures have a great aura. Yeah. And so I don't think it's easy to replace them by an actor as good as he may be. And so it's really about the investigation commission around the killing of Rabin, and also about the great incitation to kill him and to destabilize his government, which unfortunately succeeded.
Led to this, yeah. You've said in the past that Rabin represents the last sane option that we had. I'm curious, what does
I hope not the last, but here...
That's exactly what I want to ask, because where are we standing nowadays?
We're standing in the current government, which thinks that it's very nice to make declarations without any real effort to move forward, you know, without a real effort to take risks in order to move forward. Let's not forget that the Oslo agreements, which people like so much to speak badly about it, it's the only reason that in the last weeks the West Bank is not burning, you know, because you have some agreements which are still, in spite of all the you know, the erosion in the trust,
and the bad blood,
they still function. Yep. So if you didn't have some of the provisions of the Oslo Agreement, the situation would be much worse. So so I think that the effort by Israeli leaders to reach an agreement, not unilaterally, but to reach an agreement, to stretch their hand to say, hey, to the Palestinians, to the Arab world, you're a partner, let's try to find solutions. There are a lot of, like you say, blood. There is not a lot of bad memory, bad history, bad contemporary experience, but let's try to find a solution. And I think that this, unfortunately, the rupture with the killing of Rabin 20 years ago and the continuous destabilization of this current of the Israeli society is a tragedy.
Yeah. This tragedy, I guess you think, is still ongoing today, as we've seen in recent weeks. Do you think that there's anyone, can you see anyone stepping up to this
place that Rabin left open, you know, someone that has his stature, that has his background, that would enable him to do things that maybe Rabin would have done?
Listen, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because we've seen the last elections. The alternative voices were very hesitant. They were not determined enough. They lacked also a clear strategy. But let's be optimistic.
Now, you know, the film deals with the day of the murder and the investigation that followed. It also looks at what led to the assassination, which I guess you think not enough has been said about that, not enough has been done regarding those issues. It sounds like you went into this with a very clear thesis.
I mean, I learned from one of my actresses, because, as you know, I did films with a lot of Israeli actors and Palestinian actors, but also with Natalie Portman, Juliette Binoche, and Jeanne Moreau. And Jeanne Moreau told me something that I love, that I kept in my mind. And she said, Amos, when I decide to make a project, it's because I can learn something that I don't know already.
And you feel that happened to you in this project?
I think it happened to me in every project, and it's the good attitude. If you're just if you're just there to illustrate a thesis, it's not strong enough. You have to go through the experience and the emotions of rediscovering something, you know. Right. And the process is as interesting as what is happening after.
What did you learn? Do you think that the murder could have been prevented?
I think that there was a major incitation to destabilize Rabin by hallucinating rabbis, you know, who did all sorts of fathas, din rodef, din moser, pulsa denura, all sorts of Talmudic curses. Yeah. There was the settlers, the very strong lobby of the settlers, and there was the parliamentary right, which I don't think they gave an order to kill Rabin, but they kind of enjoyed the fact that he is destabilized, you know. So I think that this triumvirate managed finally to eliminate Rabin. But I would say, to answer your question, that some of this I already knew. I remember that, you know, I suppose you were too young, but we all remember the moment.
I remember it well.
When Rabin was shot, it was a shock, and even, you know, when I traveled to other countries, even far away, like India or Brazil, when I showed my films, people remembered where they were, where they heard about the killing of Rabin, because. Let's be frank, I'm not sure he would have reached a final agreement, but there was a sincerity, there was integrity, there was a real effort to heal a bit the wounds of this suffering region, and I think that we're lacking exactly this attitude. Yeah. But you know, when you make a film, to answer your question, because cinema is a very strong medium about memory. Yeah. And I'm a person who believes that memory, you know, it's also the experience of Jewish people. If they didn't believe in memory, we were not here. So we have to believe in memory. Yeah. And cinema is a strong way to bring back memory. And memory has its ways to go back into the mind of people and to refresh some ideas which maybe have been forgotten. Yeah.
So maybe through the ages, this will change the perspective of it.
Let's be modest, but we have to do something.
Now, you know, Yigal Amir, the murderer of Rabin, represents a sort of Jewish terrorism that started with the Jewish underground and has evolved through the years. And it seems that in recent time, we can say that maybe the floodgates have opened, and we see it with social media. We see it certainly in recent weeks. Do you think that's it? That this is how things are going to look now?
It depends. It depends if the current powers will do something to prevent it, you know. You know, there is a lot of criticism, even by somebody as respectable as the current president of the state, Reuven Rivlin, who has a very critical attitude to the action or the lack of action of the current powers. Yeah. But it is a kind of a danger that if it will not be taken seriously, it is dangerous.
Yeah. Now, you know, very successful director, made a lot of films, but still in the world of Israeli cinema, you're seen as an outsider in many ways. Do you feel that Israeli audiences will be open to this?
I'm sure.
This
I'm sure. I can compare it to my film Kippur, which touched a nerve, and then sometimes I like to do much more intimate pieces, like I did on the story of my father, was an architect of the Bauhaus, who came here in the 30s and was a student of Mies van der Rohe of Kandinsky. So I was dedicating a film which is called Lullaby to My Father, which is a very minimalist piece. Or I did a very minimalist piece called Ana Arabia, or Tzili, or a piece I did on the letters of my mother. So I'm interested also in the family history. But this is a big chunk of a very big traumatic event. And I'm sure, you know, the premiere of the film will be in a very big place in Hala Tarbut in Tel Aviv, which is the biggest auditorium that you can find in Tel Aviv, 3,000.
A very special date.
Very special date.
The film will be released.
Yeah, on the 4th of November, which is the date of the assassination of Rabin. So I'm confident, even by the very small number of screenings we did, that it will create interest.
Amos, it certainly looks like a very interesting project that I personally am very curious to see. And so once again, thanks for coming in, and best of luck in the festival.
Thank you.
Now, the photo of little Aylan Kurdi is the latest to join a long line of shocking, explicit photographs showing a humanitarian disaster. The tragic photo has outraged some of the public, while also managing to encourage others to pressure their governments to make humanitarian efforts to help Syrian refugees. Sunday 40 takes a look at past images that drew the eyes of the world.
It has made the front page of most important newspapers. The photo of little Aylan lying dead on a beach as if he was sleeping on his bed shocked the world. The image is already having an impact on the current situation, triggering mobilization among the population. Innocent victims of conflict or disasters, they became symbols, sometimes completely unaware of it. This is the case of Sharbat Gula, the 13-year-old Afghan girl who was photographed by Steve McCurry for the Associated Press in 1985. The portrait of this orphan in a Pakistani refugee camp made the front page of National Geographic. 18 years later, the photographer found her married and a mother. She was unaware that her face was famous around the world. The same year, another young girl shocked the world. She was 13 years old and from Colombia, trapped by a mudslide following the eruption of the Nevado Ruiz volcano. After 3 days and 3 nights of agony, little Omaira Sanchez died before the powerless rescuers and journalists. Immortalizing her eyes, photographer Frank Fournier won the World Press Photo Prize in 1986. Entitled Sudanese and Vulture, this photo too won a prize. In April 1994, Kevin Carter received a Pulitzer for this shot taken a year earlier. A girl who seems exhausted, a few meters behind, a vulture seems to wait patiently for her death. An image illustrating the famine in Sudan. Carter, affected by his drug addiction and tormented by the divorce from his wife, ended committing suicide a few months after being rewarded with a Pulitzer. The most difficult pictures to watch are usually the ones we remember. Over 40 years later, who has forgotten this photograph of little Kim Phuc? In 1972, during the war in Vietnam, she was just 9 years old. Her village had been bombed by mistake by the South Vietnamese army. 4 napalm bombs exploded on its inhabitants. She got rid of her burning clothing, crying and looking for help. After capturing the tragic moment, photographer Nick Ut rushed to help her. The photo, which won the Pulitzer, would become a symbol for those opposing the Vietnam War and for the peace movement around the world. Another child, another symbol. This afraid little boy in the Warsaw Ghetto, arms up, held at gunpoint by the Nazis. Taken in 1943 by an SS member, it was not known to the public until much later. It wasn't until the 70s and 80s for it to become one of the most famous images of the Second World War. Images are sometimes much stronger than words. It is especially true when it comes to children. These photos shock and mark the spirits. They are often the source of indignation and mobilization. actions that are yet often ephemeral. But maybe the little island will prove the opposite.
Pictures that truly leave us speechless. That's it from us for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. You're welcome to join us, of course, as always. Till then, feel free to check out our website, i24news.tv, and I will see you all again tomorrow.